It's so good having so many kids in our church. It means there's nobody left in when we're preaching, but you know, I'd rather have half the church empty when we have Grace Kids happening than the church still with the same number of people in it. As I said, today we are really blessed because it is Grace the World Sunday, and we are looking at some of the things that we have been involved in as a church over many years now. And we really want you to be encouraged and inspired by what we have been able to do together corporately as a church. It is absolutely amazing. So why don't you put your hands together and welcome Louise, Durose.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Nice to kind of see you all. You can't really see down here, but it's nice to see you all here this morning. As Dermot said, it's Grace the World Sunday. It's the last Sunday of the month, so you've probably heard us say, it's Grace the World Sunday, it's the last Sunday of the month, we take up another offering that goes outside of the four walls of our church. Obviously, over the last 6 months, we haven't been taking up said offering. So we've been basically pretty much relying on what's coming in via internet banking to go out to continue to support the partners that we're working with in the field. So it's been a while since we've updated you all on what we're actually doing, what's been happening, who we're supporting. We've got a few new families in the church. And also, I kind of think sometimes after a while you just kind of tune out. Like I get up here on a Grace World Sunday, it's like, oh, we support, Empire and Cambodia and all these places, and everyone's like, yawn. So we thought we'd give it a Sunday, and we'd actually tell you guys what your money is going towards, what we've been supporting all this time, and where the money that used to go in the buckets, but now we're hoping you'll jump online and sign up for internet banking, where that money actually goes. So our current monthly commitment to our partners in the field is $1,500 a month. So that's less than $400 a week. But to be honest, some months we're actually scraping the bottom of the barrel to get that money to come in to send out to our partners. So we've had to rely on one-off offerings. We've had to rely on sometimes even sort of maybe I haven't actually had to go to the general fund yet, but occasionally we're like, maybe we might need to. And God is faithful, and we've never had to, which is great. But the majority of that $1,500 a month goes to our partners in Vietnam and in northern India with MPART. We've been supporting these two projects for over 20 years now, both of them. So Paul and Deb Hilton from Vietnam were sent out from Tasmania, and MPART when they first started as well, and we've been supporting them right from the very beginning, which is amazing. So the first slide, I'm relying on Derm. I don't know why. I've trusted Derm with the clicker, but he doesn't have a great track record. So
No, it's the technology.
Oh, it's the technology, yeah. But anyway, he put his hand up and said, I'm going to be in charge of the clicker. So that just means that we can blame him for when it all goes horribly pear-shaped. Okay, so the first partner that I would really like to talk to you about is MPART. And we've got some photos up there. So we've been, as I said, supporting MPART for nearly 20 years now. They have a goal to plant 100,000 churches in North India by 2030. They've already planted 30,000 churches, over 30,000 churches. And then through these churches, they basically use these churches, well, not use them, but the churches then impact the community around them. So they improve livelihoods with skills development centres, health through clean water and sanitation. They empower women through vocational training, educate children. They've got 16 schools with like 5,500 kids in them. And they also provide emergency response. So COVID has hit India really hard. But also India is really prone to flooding and earthquakes and things like that. You've probably all seen some of these natural disasters in India. It's a massive, it's a continent. And it's a very kind of rich and poor continent. There's a lot of poverty in India. So over the years with MPART, we've supported church planted training centres, women's empowerment centres, children's homes, and a mercy home taking care of people with mental illness living in India. But unfortunately, the mercy home that we were most recently supporting had to be closed down due to ongoing and increasing persecution. So India is a country where basically persecution of Christians has reached an all-time high in India. There's extreme Hindu militant governments in power in many of the states in India that basically say that Hinduism is the only religion for India, and any other religion, not just Christians, so Muslims are being very heavily persecuted as well. Anyone else that doesn't adhere to Hinduism basically is persecuted. The police don't stick up for anyone. Often, sometimes the police are actually the perpetrators of the persecution. The Mercy Home that we were supporting has had to close down, and our funds have been channelled now towards church planters and people who are going out into these unreached villages and planting churches, and then through those churches doing those other things, so water and sanitation, meeting people's needs where they're at. So we have a little video that we're going to play now, which just explains a little bit and talks a little bit about one of the church planters and what they're doing and how that works. Thank you.
Yeah, namaskar. मेरा नाम सुरेंद्र, मेरा एक गुमती है जिसमें रह करके और जूता चप्पल मैं बेचता हूँ.
One day, an Empire field worker visited Surendra and his wife at his shop, sharing his story with them. Surendra's wife was deeply impacted, accepting the truth and beginning a whole new way of living. But Surendra was stubborn and didn't understand his wife's choice. He would go out drinking and come home angry and abusive towards her. But Surendra's wife didn't give up on her husband. She prayed for him constantly until finally one day he found the same peace she had. He was set free from mental illness and other problems that had been affecting him for years. Surendra had the opportunity to study at an Empire training centre and then return to his village to serve the people there. Surendra runs his business 4 days a week. Each person who comes to his shoe shop goes away knowing about the hope he now has. On the days he isn't working, Surendra is totally engaged with his gathering of 26 people. He serves the people in his village and nearby tribal communities, spending time talking and sharing with them. Surendra is one of our heroes. He continues to work and serve faithfully throughout the pandemic. Your partnership can help Surendra and other heroes reach out to hundreds of people in need. You can help them focus on the task ahead of them. 100,000 communities transformed by 2030. Will you be a hero to our heroes? Visit empire.org today.
Ordinary people transforming their communities, and we get to be a part of that. So the money that we're sending to Empire is going to support people like Surendra and other church planters doing exactly that. Basically just serving the communities where they are. They've been trained and they're going out, they're sharing the word of God, they're meeting practical needs. And God is really moving in North India. Like I said, 30,000 people like Surendra planting churches in their local community in what is an unreached part of the world. So less than 0.01% of people in North India identify as Christians. So that's incredibly exciting. The other big chunk of our finances goes to Vietnam. And as I said, we've been supporting Paul and Deb Hilton in Vietnam ever since they got sent out from Tasmania as missionaries 20 years ago. And since then their national team has grown. They've got a massive national Vietnamese staff, but also their team of missionaries has grown around them. So we support Paul and Deb Hilton. We also support Josh Hilton, their son, and Rachel, his wife, and their family, and also Beck and Kelvin Windsor and their family as well. So they've got this kind of team around them. So the work in Vietnam, again, so Vietnam is a communist country. You're not allowed to go into Vietnam and share your faith as a missionary. People have been kicked out for doing that. In fact, Paul and Deb went to serve with a missionary couple who promptly got kicked out, and Paul and Deb kind of got chucked in the deep end because the people they went to serve weren't there anymore. So you're not allowed to share your faith as a missionary in Vietnam, and actually Christians are very heavily persecuted still in Vietnam as well. So the work in Vietnam is based around meeting practical needs. So they've done things like eye and heart operations. They provide wheelchairs, bikes, helmets, livestock, community development projects. So they go into rural villages and find out what those people, what they aspire to, how they want to improve their lives, and then they come around them and link in with them with the resources that the people in the village may not have, but that these guys have because of our giving. So as a result of doing this, Paul and Deb and their team have actually won the hearts and minds of the local Communist Party officials, and now some of their Communist Party officials actually donate to their projects in Vietnam, which is amazing. So in recent years, Paul and Deb have extended their focus. They now train and mentor other missionaries all around the world, and they're also delivering a program that they wrote themselves, 2 programs actually, called Flourish and Strength. Flourish is for women and Strength is for men. They're kind of life skills and leadership development and personal development courses that they've developed, and they're running those globally now, training trainers to deliver those courses in many countries, many unreached countries as well. Some countries I've been to where they've had to go in covert and to train trainers to run these courses. Calvin and Beck Windsor, they basically run the day-to-day stuff on the ground in Vietnam, the community development work, seeing the needs, meeting the needs, all those kind of things. And then Josh and Rachel, they were in Vietnam, well, they're back here now because of COVID, but when they're in Vietnam, and actually their project is ongoing, they have what's called a Lifehouse. So their heart, there's a really high rate of abortion in Vietnam, and that's partly because of poverty, partly because there's this pressure from the government to not have too many children. Not quite as extreme as the one-child policy that they had in China, but it's kind of a bit along those lines. And as a result, a lot of women are pressured into having abortions when they don't want them. So Rachel and Josh have started Lifehouse number 1, and they're just about to do Lifehouse number 2. They've had 29 mums come through those homes in the last year and a half. And they've got 4 more babies on the way now. So all those babies that would otherwise have been aborted against the mum's wishes, that now have a life and a hope and a future, which is amazing. So we're just going to watch a little video again. Thank you.
Hey guys,
how you doing?
How y'all doing? Well, what a year, COVID-19. But God hasn't been idle in this particular season. It is a season, but God's on the move, and some incredible things have been happening through our ministry, and that with Kelvin and Beck, and also Josh and Rach. We just want to take this opportunity just to say thank you to you as a church. You guys have journeyed with us for so long and in so many different ways, and the impact that you've had in Vietnam through all of our ministries has been profound, really. Through the engagement with communities, community development programs we've been involved in doing, healthcare, the whole range of things, and the knock-on effect of your involvement there with other communities has been quite a lot. Yeah. And even in this COVID season, through with Kelvin and Beck and the team in Vietnam, they've been able to minister to so many families, like 1,650, I think 1,850, families. There's about 750 children up in a remote area up in the mountains. Also a social support centre, so providing sanitation and hygiene packs specifically in this COVID period. And so that's been a huge blessing. So we want to thank you for your partnership to help make all that happen. For Josh and Rachel with their ministry with Lifehouse, your support of them and Lifehouse has been incredible. And I think there are 27 mums have actually been through Lifehouse, some still there. 22 mums have been born. So they're 22 children that probably would have been aborted. Yeah. So that's significant. And Lifehouse number 2, which is a transitional home, that'll be, I think, finished in mid next year. Yeah. So that's coming along. That'll be a transition home. There'll be some vocational training involved with that as well. So that, again, will just make a big difference in helping to transition these mums back into normal society and become independent. Yeah. And so, again, we're just so grateful to you for the impact that you've had in Vietnam already and what you continue to do.
And for us, what's the future look like? Well, God has called us and planted us in Vietnam, as you well know, but He has spoken to us in many different ways over the last 4 years to just multiply what you've done in Vietnam globally, and that's what we've begun to do, including coaching, mentoring, pastoring our field workers, to just see them be able to achieve all that God's got for them. Yeah. You are part of that. You are actually making a difference, not just in Vietnam, but also globally. Just collectively, with, on behalf of ourselves, Beck and Kelvin, Josh and Rach, we want to say a huge thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Grace, for all you do. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, we love you guys.
Yeah, we do. Can't wait to see you.
Yeah.
See you, bye. Bye.
Paul and Deb are awesome. They're actually here in Australia at the moment. They kind of got stuck in the whole COVID thing and got stuck in Australia. And Josh and Rachel are also stuck here. Josh had to come back for surgery, and then there was an emergency dash to get his family back over here as well. They're still working with their national. They've got a very well established national team. And Beck and Kelvin and their kids are still in Vietnam and have been right through this period of COVID. So that's where those guys are at. So Empire and Vietnam take up the big chunk of the money that you guys give every month, but we also have a couple of other projects that we're supporting, and one of those is Rob Garnsey. He's a North West Coast Devonport boy. I have a fondness for the North West Coast. My hubby's a North West Coast boy. They breed them good up there. And so Rob went to Thailand 16 years ago for a year and just basically never came home. So he's married to his wife, Dang, who is a Thai national, and they've got a daughter, Natalie. Now, Rob's founded Seeds of Hope in Thailand, up in Chiang Mai, in northern Thailand. And he's doing a lot of practical work with men, training them up in skills so that they can then go out and earn a living, building homes. They do sanitation work, building toilets, things like that. They also teach English, and they resource local schools as well. And just meeting needs as they come along. So there's a lady up here with a walking frame that they were able to provide. This lady in the middle, the old lady, they built a toilet for her. So basically just meeting needs as they come along and as they have the resources to do that. So just recently one of our Connect groups sent a sum of money to Rob, which was actually distributed with food parcels and education supplies out to one of the schools right up in the mountains, up in the north, to a Karen village. They're a stateless people in Thailand. They don't have any rights. They're very much living in poverty there. And a Connect group from our church supported Rob in that way, which was amazing. So we have a little video from Rob as well. Thank you.
Hello from Thailand, from Gandhi's family. We just would like to thank the great church that has been supporting us for many years. And then you don't see Natalie with us today. She now at the school. And now I want to tell you about what we've been doing for a few months.
Hi guys, how you going? Just to let you know, it's the start of winter here. As you can see, we have our winter attire on. It's warm outside all the time. COVID has wreaked havoc on Thailand in the beginning. Everything was shut, but now everything is completely open and everything's fine. Next door in Burma, however, they are getting about 1,000 cases a day. So we are concerned, and we're not really worried, but we are concerned. Now, some of the things that we've been doing, recently we've had a lot of heavy weather come from Vietnam into Thailand, and we get these tropical depressions. And the lady who's behind the camera, who's videotaping us, is Star. Now, Star lost a lot of stuff. She was actually in her room eating when the floodwaters just came in and bang, and she lost most of the stuff. Over the last couple of weeks, we did a couple of fundraisers, and one fundraiser actually, and raised enough money to buy Star a new fridge, a bed, a mattress, and wardrobe, and a few other accessories, and also for a couple of the other girls who lost stuff here as well, which the room is directly underneath us. At the moment, Danny and I, we do community development. So we are actually in the process of finishing off a toilet block for an elderly lady, and her toilet was hideous. So we made it quite strong. We put in a new toilet bowl, we put some tiles in with steel and cement sheeting. And very shortly, Dan and Natalie next week are going up to the mountains, which is about a 4-hour drive from here, up towards Burmese border, and they're going to participate in an English camp with Korean Thai people up in the mountains. Guys, we appreciate that you've been with us all this time. We really have. We're grateful that you support our family, you pray for us, and the good thing is, we've got a lot of good friends in Grace. We love you all day. We do. We can't wait to see you guys again. A bit of Dan Ross.
Rob just forget to tell you about the COVID. That we've been giving food to many families, and the school that we support their lunch, and we did some dinner too.
Yeah.
We have
know it's roughly about 450 odd people, plus more or less. We don't know the figures.
Because in that how many of them they lose their job, they don't have work, and they don't have income for their family. And some of them they are or some of them they have one people working to feed 3 people in the family. During that time, we may have many friends that send the money over, and then we give them some rice, like the people that grocery
Food parcels.
food parcel. Yeah. We thank you for you to support us and pray for us and be part of our work here in Thailand. And we hope one day you will come to visit us here. God bless you.
See you later. Bye-bye. Thank you all.
They're awesome, those guys. They were with us not all that long ago. So the other project that we support on a regular basis is Operation Uganda, obviously working in the nation of Uganda in East Africa. Has a special place in my heart. It's the first country that I went to as a young person, passionate about missions, and took myself off to Uganda for a few months and left a piece of my heart over there. So Operation Uganda focus on the care of orphans and widows as the most vulnerable of any society, but particularly a poor society. So they provide scholarships for orphan and vulnerable children to enable them to go to school and access healthcare and things like that. And then they run literacy and English and skills-based training for widows. And then they also have a daycare centre so that then the widows that have children with these skills that they've learnt, if they've got kids at home, they can't go and work. So they've got a daycare centre. So the kids get to get loved and cared and nurtured in the daycare centre, and the mums can go out and use their new skills to earn money and bring money home and feed their families and break that cycle of poverty, which is amazing. They're also partnering with 25 primary and secondary schools. They do things like training, chaplaincy, counselling, computer labs, things like that, renovations. And recently they've completed construction of a primary school up in northern Uganda. We took a team up to Abim in northern Uganda, a few years ago now, before Henry and Addie were born, so it's over 5 years ago. And that area up there that's still recovering very much so from the war that was going on in northern Uganda, still very much dependent very heavily on aid from the World Health Organisation and food bank and all those kind of things. So they've built a primary school up there. They've got 1,500 kids up there in the school. They've built toilet blocks for them, and they've got an early childhood centre up there as well, again to try and meet that need of women who've lost their husbands and have kids but need to work, so they've got the early childhood centre up there as well. And Operation Uganda, they're also planting and supporting church planters to be the ones to go out and impact their communities as well. So all of their stuff is done under the banner of the local church, which is amazing. So our support goes to what's called their Emergency Relief Fund. It's only a small amount that we give every month, but it goes to that relief fund that then they can use for whatever need they've got that's coming up. They often come across needs, people with health issues, families that are desperate and have no food, things like that. Someone they've had kids that have had to go to Kenya for heart operations and things like that. So that's where our funding goes, so that we trust them to use and distribute that money as they see fit when they see needs that come up. So that's where our $1,500 a month goes. And aside from our regular monthly support that we do there, we also support one-off projects if and where we can, usually by taking up a special offering of some sort or doing some sort of fundraising. So over the years with those one-off offerings, we've equipped medical centres, we've built playgrounds, we've built classrooms, we've purchased livestock, pigs, and goats and things, bike helmets for kids. You often see kids in these countries that are riding bikes with no bike helmets, or on the back of a motorbike with no helmet. The driver's got a helmet, but the kid doesn't. We've dug wells, we've built homes, we've provided emergency relief to bushfire and flood and earthquake appeals. So that's all been amazing. We've got two main areas that we've been supporting through one-off offerings, mainly through our one-day offering, which we sort of take up once a year and ask you guys to give to. So 2 main projects I'd like to mention there. One of them is Tim Dwyer. He is, my kids call him Big Timmy, very tall. So he's the local community chaplain here, and as a church we've been really financially supportive, but also prayerfully supportive and practically supportive of the chaplaincy. Obviously, working in the community that we're based in, we're really heavily invested in the idea of a chaplain reaching out to the community and meeting needs where he can. So he has a massive heart to serve the community here and to see people, local people, come to realise their worth and their value in God's eyes. The other project that I'd like to talk to you about is Cambodia. Will and Anne, Will's here, I don't think Anne's here this morning, but if you haven't met Will and Anne yet, I think you should make it your mission to do so. These guys are just incredible people, awesome to have a chat to, and just really wonderful, generous people. So they've been doing amazing work in Cambodia through the organisation that they started called Raise Cambodia, and we've been partnering with them on a number of projects. So we've built a house, we've dug some wells, we've built toilets, we've purchased school books and desks and uniforms for kids to go to school, and we've helped pay teachers' salaries in schools as well. And I know the need in Cambodia is great, and Will and Anne could help transform so many more lives if they had more, I mean, same with all of these guys, more resources means more transformation, more wells dug, more kids in school, all of that kind of stuff. So one project that's very dear to Anne's heart and very dear to my own heart as well is the prevention of trafficking young girls into the sex trade, and also helping the girls who have been rescued out of the sex trade, helping them practically with skills training and things like that, and resources, safe places to stay, so that they're not forced to go back to the trade that they've been rescued from. So basically, every month when I get up here and talk about Grace of the World and where we're going, you now know what you are a part of. This is what you guys are a part of. These guys couldn't do what they do if it wasn't for what used to be the money going in the buckets, but now the money that's going into the bank account and then being distributed to these guys. We don't keep any of the Grace of the World money for admin or anything like that. It all goes outside of our church to support these guys. So we've been a part of something incredible. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I've been doing this role for what feels like a very long time now, half my life, 10 years, and I've seen the transformation that has taken place. I've been to these places. I've been to India. I've been to Cambodia. I've been to Vietnam. I've been to Thailand. And I've seen what $10, $20, $50, $100 can do, and how that real and tangible, you know, we put a bit of money in a bucket, it doesn't feel real, but I've seen the real and tangible results over there on the ground. So we have about 60, I asked Dermot this question the other day, we've got about 60 to 75 households in our church. So that's kind of a family, or a single young person, or a single older person, or a couple or whatever. It's about 65 to 70 households. If every single household could spare $20 a week, we could quadruple what we're giving a month. If everyone gave $10 a week, if every household gave $10 a week, we could double what we're sending out every month. I'm not asking you to give it to me, I'm not asking you to give it to Dermot or Gus, but I am asking you to consider if you could spare 10, 20, some of you could spare more than that, $50 a month, that would actually go into the hands of these people that we've seen here and distributed to transform needy communities, to empower people, to lift people out of poverty, so that they can realise their own sense of dignity, their own sense of worth, which is amazing. So, just to wrap up, I just would like to just talk about something that's been kind of kicking around in my head a little bit of late. And it's just, I just want to talk to you a little bit about life. No, you know, big concept. And I don't know, I guess I just wanted to flag the question of who here wants to live an extraordinary life? It's kind of a bit of a trick question, because we all do. Let's face it, we all want to leave a legacy of some sort. Someone said it's why we have kids, to leave a legacy, so there's something to kind of live beyond us. And And we all kind of want to have our life marked by something significant for something, a success or a thing that we've done that we can kind of measure our lives by. And I grew up as a young person in church 5 years ago, wanting to change the world. I wanted to be, like we sang a Delirious song this morning, which was a blast from the past. But, you know, I grew up with History Maker as my anthem, which is a Delirious song. And, you know, that I wanted to live what I perceived to be a life of significance, to be remembered for something. And if I was a motivational poster kind of person, my walls would have been adorned with posters that said things like, refuse to be an extraordinary person trapped in an ordinary life, or don't be willing to accept an ordinary life, or have the courage to live an extraordinary life, or heroes are just ordinary people who make themselves extraordinary. But over the last 5 or 10 years, since I was a young person, I've gotten a bit older, and maybe somewhere along the line a little bit wiser, and maybe, if I'm honest, a little bit tireder. And I've realised that there's actually a couple of problems with this kind of narrative that we tell ourselves sometimes. And firstly, I think I realised that there's so much of that stuff is all about me, my mark on life, my significance, my purpose, my vision, my calling, my, it's all about me. There's a whole lot of ego tied up in that kind of stuff. And the other thing is that I guess we get, okay, so I'm not a young person anymore, just to dispel any kind of misconceptions out there. But you get to a certain point in life where you kind of go, oh, I've missed it. I wanted to live this extraordinary life, and you know now I've got my kids, and I'm doing this stuff. I'm parenting, I'm working, I'm serving in church. I'm trying to be a good friend. I'm trying to be a good daughter. I'm trying to be a good sister. Trying to be a good wife. Sorry. But if I'm honest, I guess I feel like, you know, sometimes it's easy to feel like, oh, I've missed my moment. I've missed my chance to live this extraordinary life that I grew up wanting to live. And I wonder how many of us kind of feel like that maybe that extraordinary life, we've either missed it, or maybe it was never for ours in the first place. Maybe it was just for someone more qualified or more gifted or whatever. And I guess when I've always thought about extraordinary biblical heroes of the Christian faith, I've thought about, you know, Paul and Peter and James and John and Timothy, the early preachers, the early apostles who went out and preached the word. They travelled the world, they held these mass gatherings, they preached, and lots of people were saved. We know their names, we've heard their stories. They definitely lived an extraordinary life, and we remember them as a result. But there's some other heroes that I've recently been introduced to, that I'd like to introduce you to in the Bible as well. And that we'll find them in Acts 2, 44 to 47. And this verse says, all the Lord's followers often met together. They shared everything they had. They would sell their property and possessions and give the money to whoever was in need. Day after day they met together in the temple. They broke bread together in different homes, shared their food happily and freely while praising God. Everyone liked them. And each day the Lord added to their group others who were being saved. We don't know the names of these people. Who were they? What were their stories? They sound anything but extraordinary. In fact, to me, this is a very picture of ordinary life. Yeah. And yet these ordinary people living their ordinary lives are largely responsible for the fact that you and I are here today. Because people were being added, like Paul and Peter and all those people that went out and preached. Like, they might have preached, people might have got saved, but then if it wasn't for these ordinary people being kind, welcoming them in, sharing their food, sharing what they had, if it wasn't for these ordinary people, the church wouldn't exist. This is the early church, and this early church is responsible for the fact that we're here today. So yes, Paul and the early apostles were world changers, but this verse tells me, basically, that if it wasn't for teachers and carpenters and labourers and mums and dads, believers in Jesus, lovers of God, people generous with what God had given them, going to church faithfully every Sunday, giving their money sacrificially to help others, and practising kindness to those around them, the church wouldn't be here. The church wouldn't be what it is today. Ordinary people that have changed the world. No one knows their name, no one knows who they were, but they were history makers. And it says here that everyone liked them. I love that. I think that was what really got to me, was that little line, everyone liked them. And why is that? Why did everyone like them? Was it because they were out there banging people over the head with a Bible or whatever? No, it was because their lives were marked by love. They gave generously. They shared out of their abundance. A lot of them probably shared out of their lack. They didn't hold on to their own possessions tightly. They lived simply, and they lived and they loved generously. And that's why everyone loved them. That's why everyone liked them. The early church was well liked. It was persecuted, but it was well liked. And I guess the reality is that some people are called and equipped by God to live an extraordinary life. And maybe you're one of them. And if you are, then we will pray for you and we will support you, because honestly, I've never met anyone yet who was called to live a truly extraordinary life that hasn't come at enormous personal cost and sacrifice. So, there may be people here who are called to be this extraordinary, massive life that everyone will remember for decades, generations to come, and we will pray for you, because you will need it. You will need it. But the reality is that really most of us are called to serve God faithfully and to love people generously within the bounds of what is actually just an incredibly ordinary life. One unlikely to be remembered beyond our immediate loved ones or a couple of generations. I was at a baby shower a couple of weeks ago, and this flabbergasted me. One of the games, because you play these kind of donkey games at baby showers, and one of the games I played was Celebrity Heads, where the mum-to-be had to guess who the famous mother was that she had on her head. And the mother, which is actually Mother Teresa, so she's not actually physically a mother, but she was a mother to many. And I was listening to one of the other people that was there explaining to her 13-year-old daughter who Mother Teresa was. This Mother Teresa, who lived this incredibly extraordinary life, and I'm like, this kid was 13 and had no idea who this woman was. So I guess for me that was kind of both discouraging and encouraging at the same time, because I'm like, it's actually not about being remembered for anything or having a name that lasts forever or anything like that. It's just about how much we love. Mother Teresa doesn't care whether people remember her name or not, but she cared about the people that she loved and the lives that she impacted and what they've gone on to do. I love that this church is a wonderfully ordinary church, full of wonderfully ordinary people. Like myself, I count myself as incredibly ordinary. We're full to the brim of people who are living ordinary lives, but my experience of this church is that every single person in this church is living an ordinary life marked by incredibly extraordinary love. Like, this church are people, we know the love of God, and my experience of the love that I've received from people in this church is that we exude the love of God. And I guess for me, I think as an ordinary church full of ordinary people that are marked with an extraordinary love, we as a church have the capacity to change the world. We do. We're already doing it. Through all the stuff that we've seen today, we've impacted people in our community, but people far beyond the realms and the reaches of what we would even dream to be possible if we didn't hear it from these guys themselves, thanking us for the support that we've been able to give them because of your love. So one way that we can change the world is like the early church, not considering our wealth and our possessions to be our own, something to keep to ourselves, something to accumulate for ourselves because we can't take it with us, but to share what we have, to give generously out of our abundance for some of us, and even out of our lack for others of us. So one of the ways that I'd really like you to consider how to live an extraordinary life, or an ordinary life marked by extraordinary love, is by giving to the projects that we're working with. As I said, we're struggling to meet sometimes our monthly goals, and we'd really like to be able to extend our support of the projects in Cambodia and other projects in the other countries that we're working with as well. So up on the thing there, if you don't already give electronically, can I just encourage you to take a screenshot or take a photo of the bank account details there, go home and set up internet banking. Like I said, if every single household in our church gave $10 a month, we could double our impact. $10 a week. $20 a week, that's 4 cups of takeaway coffee. I would eat $20 a week worth of chocolate. So, Dermot doesn't. He's a very, very, very disciplined.
I'm a $40 a week chocolate man.
$40 a week chocolate man. He's very disciplined. So I just want to really encourage you. These details are also on our website. But we truly have been part of something so much bigger than us for such a long time, but we still have the capacity to have an even bigger impact around the world globally with our ordinary lives, and I don't say that apologetically. I did kind of think, are people going to get offended because I'm telling them that they're ordinary? Sorry. But we do. Sometimes we feel like, our life is just ordinary. I'm not really achieving anything, but we are. We are achieving something so much bigger and contributing to something so much bigger than ourselves. So just want to really encourage you to prayerfully consider what you might be able to give. Maybe sacrifice half of your chocolate budget. I'll sacrifice a third of mine because my chocolate budget's only small. But yeah, just want to encourage you to live, yes, an ordinary life, but marked by extraordinary love, and that's the love of God that we have been so fortunate and so blessed to receive ourselves. But there are millions of people out there who do not understand what the heck we are talking about when we talk about grace, when we talk about mercy, when we talk about a God who loves us and is gracious and merciful and forgiving and compassionate and kind. And their experience of God is either nothing or the complete opposite of that. So we know this love, and it's my heart that we will be a part of something that will actually share that love to the world around us. That's it for me. Thank you. Do I give back to